You're listening to episode 926 of the Father Bales podcast. Welcome back. In this episode, I'm preaching to children that are receiving their first Holy Communion at that Mass. And so if you hear my way of speaking to them is a little different, that's why. So this is the homily entitled, Remain in My Love, given on the 6th Sunday in Easter 2024. Married? No? Those are the boys saying that, by the way. No, right? That's right. What are we here for? First Holy Communion, that's right. Well, last week, Father Anthony talked about how we are called to abide with God. Well, I want you to know something about that. I'm going to move that a little bit further, but I want to tell you two stories first. Story number one. When I was your age, roughly, I would go to the later Mass with most of my family. I'm the 9th of 9, yeah? And so, but my dad would go to the early bird Mass on Sunday. And one time I got up a little earlier than I'm used to, and he was coming home from Mass. And I heard him working in the kitchen, and pretty soon I smelled a waft of bacon. Scrambled eggs and toast. I'm like, oh, I'm hungry. This is great. Hey, Dad, can I have breakfast with you? He goes, no, son, you have to go to Mass, but if you go to Mass with me in the early Mass, like next week, you can have breakfast with me. I'm like, a miracle happened, my friends. I got up early. I made it to that early Mass, and we had bacon and eggs. He even cuts it into squares as he's cooking it, and then puts it in the eggs as we're... Anyway, I won't go on. I'll stop there. But it was yummy. Whenever I smell bacon today, that memory comes forward. The greatest things, you have like what they call smell memories. You smell something, and it reminds you of an event. They're very potent, right? Yeah. That's story number one. Story number two. When I was a teenager, now this isn't all teenagers, this was me at this time. I think I was a 9th grader, and I was just in a grumpy mood. I was coming home from school, I was angry, I was just disagreeable, nothing Mom could say could do anything to please me, so she finally just said, hey, be quiet, sit down. And then she puts a plate of food in front of me. Another miracle took place. I all of a sudden, after eating, was like no longer in a bad mood. I learned what hangry is. You're hungry and angry? Hangry. I was hangry. And Mom knew the final formula to take care of that. Now, I offer you these two stories because eating is not just about food. Eating is not just about food. It's about life and relationship. And Jesus knows this. It's one of those reasons he came to us like we're about to receive your first Holy Communion. We're going to bring the host up, and it's going to be bread when we bring it up at the beginning here, and then I'm going to bless it. But when you receive it, it's no longer bread. What is it? Or who is it? Which person of the name of God? Jesus, that's right. It's no longer bread, but it's now Jesus. That's another miracle, a bigger miracle than my changing my attitude for sure, right? But see, here's the deal. God wants to be with us. He told us he wants us to remain in his love. How do we remain in his love? Well, we heard, obey his commandments. Love God and love your neighbor. Love as he loves. But if we don't encounter him, that's kind of tough. We can go in our backyard and say, hey, God, help me out. He'll help you out. But he gave us a particular thing called, it starts with an E, and I'll start saying it, see if you can fill it in. The Eucharist. Yeah, good. The Eucharist. That's what we're going to receive. So when you receive the Eucharist, you're receiving Jesus. And he's now with you. Every time you go to communion, Jesus said, come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will refresh you. We hear that in the scriptures. So whenever you're having trouble, whenever you're confused, whenever you're afraid, whenever you're sad, God wants to be with you. He wants to help you with that. Because here's the deal, folks. as we get older, you're young, that's awesome, and you have your own issues and problems, and we struggle. But as you get older, all these things get a little bit bigger. Our problems get a little bigger, our struggles get bigger, so do our joys too. But Jesus wants to be with us in all the good times and the bad times. How do we do that? How do we encounter him? Well, he gave us himself. And he didn't recommend this. He just said, hey, take this, all of you, and what is the this? It's this very body. Take this, all of you, and eat of it. This is my body. That's right. And now he's present in the Eucharist. So here's the deal. My friends, when you struggle, when you're at your wit's end, you don't know what to do, encounter Jesus. Come to Mass. Receive the Eucharist and see what happens, because he can help us. He wants to walk with us through all these difficult things. He loves you deeply. He wants you to remain in his love. And when there's love, all kinds of great things happen. So here's your homework. Before I get to the homework, but I'm going to ask you this. After you receive your first communion this week, today, what's going to happen next week? What are you going to do? You're going to receive your second communion. And then after that, your third communion. After that, and on and on and on and on. Right. I think I'm about 12,000 communions at this point. It was an estimation. I could be wrong. It could be 13,000. I don't know. But here's the deal. Jesus says, come to me, all you who are having problems. He's inviting us to come to him. So don't be away. Stay. Hang out. Be with us. So here's the homework. You ready? Instead of just saying, come to Mass in the next week, I'm going to ask you to come to Mass for the rest of your life and receive Jesus every weekend so that you will remain in him. That means you're not staying here all day. You just come to Mass. Come to Mass and receive Jesus. Hear his word preached and spoken, and then receive communion. I need him myself. Without him, I can do nothing. And this is a very powerful way for him to be with you. What do you think? Is that a possible thing you can try to do? Strive for coming to Mass and receiving communion every time you come? Yeah? I hope so. God bless you. Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Father Bills podcast. It is such a delight. It's so much fun to be able to offer Mass for our children who are receiving their first Holy Communion. Just the energy that's there, the excitement and nervousness, but also be able to share with them some of the most focused things about our faith, the Eucharist, Christ present in the Eucharist, and how important that is for us. And it's really important for me to be able to speak in a certain way to the kids so they can hear it and not get too deep. Though you might hear me on occasion speak a little bit differently to the adults, even in some of those masses when I've done those, if you heard in the past. So I'll try to hit both groups, but mostly it's about the kids. And it's so wonderful because then also their families are there, their extended families there, some of their friends are there. So it's just a wonderful, joyful celebration. Now, if you have any comments or questions, I just encourage you to go to my website, fatherbill.org, FRBILL.org, and there you can see, you can email me. I got a blog there. I have links to my Facebook, my YouTube account, my Twitter, formerly, or now known as X.com, etc. So there's many different sites and I interact with, but mostly I'm doing things on Facebook and YouTube. And on YouTube, I've been doing a weekly, if you haven't checked this out, a weekly Friday reflection. So it usually goes up on Thursday evening, 7 p.m. Pacific time, and you can check that out. Just go to fathergeek.org, frgeek.com. That'll get you right to the YouTube page. In the meantime, may God bless you and have a great week. Bye-bye.